let me give you an overview of Maestro. Firstly, the reason why I made this thing is because I found myself constantly getting lost in contexts and as well as with entire agents. So I would, I'd have iTerminal sessions with an agent running, and I would completely forget about it, and it would be left unattended. And I've been looking at different solutions like Claudia and Clive CC or Claude CC and all these things, and none of them really fit the bill. I've been tracking them for a while and just waiting for someone else to build this thing, but no one else has. So I've gone ahead and done it. And here's the general gist of it. There's a whole bunch of downloads for different platforms. It's an Electron desktop app. So go to the latest release, pull down your relevant OS version. If you're on Mac, you're going to have to clear the quarantine for it. And by the way, this is untested on Windows and Linux. I'm just developing it on Mac and tuning it on Mac. But at some point, as I reach more stability, which is it's quite stable right now, I've got all the major features that I want. At this point, I'm going to be looking at more like making test cases, refactoring the code to make all the different files smaller, to make it more conducive to coding with Gen AI. I'll be looking at adding support for other agent types. Today it only supports Claude, but I want to add Codex, I want to add Gemini, really any command line React that's, reason act loop CLI interface will work so long as it has two basic primitives. It has some concept of a session ID, and that session ID can be resumed in conversation. And you'll see what I mean in a minute when we go dive into what Maestro does. So let's run it. I'll run it in demo mode first so that we don't have any of my settings. Right. So we just started up. We need to create a new agent. I'm just going to call this Scratchpad, and it's going to go into my Scratch directory. That's perfect. And so we create agent. All right. So now we've got an agent. It's backed by Claude Code, and you can see in the left panel, we got the left panel on the left, right panel on the right, then we got the main panel and the input panel, and we can call this the main header. So on the left panel, we've got our list of agents. We can group them if we want. On the right panel, we've got our file list. So this is the files in the directory that we specified for the agent. There's history, which is empty right now. We'll swing back to this. There's auto run, which is probably the most powerful feature of Maestro. It is the ability to run Maestro through a bunch of prompts unattended, and the key feature behind it is that we are getting a fresh session per task per document. So this allows us to just loop and run for hours upon hours. In fact, that's the number one goal in terms of achievement in Maestro, is to get yourself to how long, what's your total, what is your longest runtime? So how long were we able to run an auto run unattended? What's the total amount of time that you've spent in auto run? And what's the total runs you've had total? Or total auto runs you've had in tally. And so as you tack on more and more time, you're going to achieve different levels of, and these are actually legit Maestro levels, apprentice, assistant, etc., all the way to, and I learned all this in the process, level 11, Titan of the Baton. And I got an example of different people, different real world Maestros, Wikipedia pages on each one of these. And you can see it's going to be quite hard to reach level 11. You got to have 10 years of auto runtime. But before you think that's absolutely preposterous, know that you can run these things in parallel and unattended. So you can get a lot more than 24 hours in a day, for example. All right, back to the main interface. We are in. We have a new session. We're able to chat with Claude here. Howdy, how are you? All right, so we're in the standard discussion panel, the comms panel. We can switch to the terminal side, the command side. All right, so now I can issue shell commands, and it's got some cute tab completion. And if you're in a Git folder, it'll even look at like branches and tags and all this. And so you've got a nice little interface here for executing commands, way better than from Claude Code hitting bang and running a shell command. Right? That was another problem, is I always had, basically in my iTerm, I would have a combination of a Claude Code window open and a shell window open next to it, and that's how I would work. Now let's get back to the interface here. All right, so we've got our command mode, and we've got our, and there's a hotkeys galore, right? So there were 51 hotkeys total. These can be filtered, and a whole bunch of these can be customized under settings. But I do basically everything here from hotkey. And so it's Command J to jump back and forth between the two different modes. Now I can go Command T for creating a new session. And this is one of the first most powerful features of Maestro is I like to keep a different session per component. Let's say if I'm doing some development, in fact, as I'm working on Maestro, I'll have a thread for the left panel, for the right panel, for the auto run, for the markdown rendering, right? I keep a different thread for each specific thing I'm working on so that when I have a problem in that area, I'll dive to it and it'll just pick up the conversation where it left off and have all the relevant context. So again, this is a new session. There's no session ID associated with it. Hey, what is Maestro from Pedramamini? We'll send that out there, and it'll use all of the capabilities it has. So if you've got MCP and all that, it will leverage it. Right? Whatever hooks you have, it'll leverage it. We are just calling Claude Code. This is a wrapper for Claude Code. And while this is running, let me go back. And again, there's hotkeys for switching between tabs, just as you would expect, like in the browser. You can close and unclose tabs with all the same hotkeys. Command U will toggle on these unread only. So when I switch over to my real Maestro, you'll see I've got so many tabs, they're not even visible on the screen. And of course, you can also search the tabs if you want. There's hotkeys for this as well. So let's rename a tab. And I can do that from here. I can star tabs, rename tabs. This session ID is the Claude session ID. And just the first component of it, the first octet, as I like to call it, is all you need to really identify it. But let's rename this to, general conversation. And then this one, maybe it's about Maestro. Now, why this is taking so long, I'm not 100% sure. I am over quota. Oh, there we go. I am over quota on Claude because of this tool. It's crazy. I've spent like 3 times my monthly max cost is 200. I spent 600 on top of that. In fact, that's one of the neat things is, let's show you another thing, is there is not only the sessions that we're making here, and obviously we can close them, unclose them, but there's any session you've had prior in that directory with Claude Code we can get to by going to this thing. This is the session discovery tool. So you can see I've got the 2 I just made, but there's a whole bunch of other ones, and that's because I've been doing some testing here in my Scratch folder. So you can see that even though this is a fresh project, because Claude has a history, we're able to go examine it. And we can search the history, again, way better than the search that's built into Claude Code. You can search by name, by content, by messages you sent, by responses, by all of them. So a bunch of different ways of slicing this. And you'll see it tabulates the full cost for this project. So just my testing in Scratch was $140 cost. Of course, how much of this came from your max credit and how much of it came from your overages, who's to know. All right, let's take a look at the settings. So you can change your font, you can change the size, you can change your level of debugging, your log buffer for the CLI terminal, how many responses you're going to give, how many you're going to record every time there's a response, how many lines you want to see. You can change your shells, and you can change the hotkeys for whether or not you're sending a command or sending an AI message, what the hotkey for that is, and it's uniquely saved across both. Here's where you can edit your keyboard shortcuts. We've got themes. So there's dark modes, there's light modes, and there's some special modes like purple is my favorite choice. Purple is my favorite color. I'm wearing a purple shirt right now. This is one that Maestro chose for itself. Let's go to Monokai for the rest of this demo. Oh, other settings. Notifications. You can do OS notifications. You can do audio feedback. So, using the default say, and it's smart enough to not just blob a huge thing. Like it'll summarize what it's actually sending, so you're not listening to a whole bunch of syntax in your feedback. Toast notifications are internal, how long they're lasting for. And this will take pipes. So what I have it do actually is I feed it through a fabric command, and then I pipe that to an 11 say, and so it's actually speaking my notifications to me in my own voice. And then finally, there is a concept of custom AI commands. There's a built-in one, /commit, that's just going to look at, if you're in a current Git repository, it's going to look at your changes. It's going to summarize them. It's going to commit them. It's going to push it. And it's going to include the agent session ID in there as well. That's the Claude session ID, so you can reference back to it. And there's a whole bunch of template variables, so you can see here that you can use inside of your custom commands. These show up as custom / commands in the AI terminal, and they're extended by the custom / commands that come out of Claude. So whatever custom commands you have there, plus the built-ins from Maestro, plus the ones you add in Maestro, that becomes your full palette of / commands. All right, what else do we got? Oh, there's the ability to, of course, collapse these side panels, so you can get a bigger picture view. There's a hover state for, we're a whole bunch of these, and this indicator will tell you if the agent is thinking or not, if it's working or not. And of course, we have hotkeys for all this. There's hotkeys for jumping to history, to the auto run. Let's set up an auto run actually. We're going to have to choose a folder that contains our auto run documents. And I've been messing around with this, so here's a demo. We'll select this one. There's 19 documents found. So we get, when we specify an auto run document folder, what happens is all the files, all the markdown files recursively in that directory become accessible to you. And you can change the auto run folder, so don't feel like you're locked into it. You can open up markdown files, you can preview them, and again, there's hotkeys for all this, for switching back and forth. This is for refreshing the document list. We can create a new document if we want to. And the idea is you create a whole bunch of to-dos, right? In the simplest form, you create a whole bunch of to-dos, and then you just hit run. And what run will do is, it's by default going to use a single document, and there's going to be an overarching prompt, and there's a sane default that will just work. But what the idea here is that we're going to take this outer prompt, and we're going to tell it, hey, agent, go open this document, find the first task, or if there's a group of tasks, take it all on, right? Like we want to do a logical chunk. Do it, check them off in the document, and then return back a status. And that session is codified for that specific task. The next task that runs, because there's still open tasks in the document, a fresh session, again with this wrapper prompt, and pass the document again, and it's going to update that document in line. And so as it's running, it's going to check things off. And let's just run this one actually, get a feel for it. So we got 6 tasks, really not much to it. Hit go. All right, auto run is running. We've got this, and now we're in write mode here. So what that means is we can only make read-only operations on the AI side, because we don't want to clobber writes that might be going on at the same time. And read-only, by the way, can be triggered. You can see it here. If you click the read-only, it'll toggle into it while we're in auto run or while another task is running. Well, actually, if another write task is running, then you can queue up a write task. But while auto run is running, you can only send read tasks. There's also this history button. If you hit this, then the synopsis of what you did will show up here in the history. Which, let's talk about that now. Good timing, as these tasks are starting to get filled, and we should be able to see that here. This is locked. As these tasks get knocked out, auto is adding history items. So it's saying there was an automatic thing here. Here's the task that we accomplished, how much it cost, and here's the specific session ID. So I can jump to it and go see exactly what this looked like. Here we can see our outer prompt, and then at the very bottom, it's going to reference our document, and it goes and it does some work. We ask it for the synopsis. It gives that back. That's what's going into the responses here. And if you go look at this next task, you'll see, again, it's a fresh context for every single one of them. And potentially, I may want to rename this and continue this dialogue in the future. Because if you've got a whole bunch of tasks list out here, as it's implementing them, it's giving you the start for an informed conversation with the right context about that specific feature. So that's the history component for you. Tell me more. Let's just do this. I just want to show a user history entry as well. And as you do big things, Maestro will detect it and create user entries for you automatically. But if you want to force it, you can just toggle on that history toggle and it'll force a history generation. You could leave it on if you just want to keep a manual log. Maybe you're giving low volume commands in a project, and you want to keep track of every major change that you've made. I don't know. Maybe you're automating trades or something with this platform. All right, so that's the auto run capability. Let's go look at what else we got here. We've got some Git capabilities. Those will be visible later on. In fact, let me switch over to my actual Maestro, and we can continue the demo from here. So here's my Maestro. You can see I've got a whole bunch of groups. All right, I got a group, for example, for all my vibe coded projects. They all sit over here. And when they're collapsed with multiple items in a group, you get a status message for each of them. If you want to mouse over and just see what's going on, I can collapse it, and you can see the status messages there. You can bookmark things. So the things that I'm working on, I like to bookmark and close the other groups. That gives me the ability to switch back and forth between the projects I'm working on with just a hotkey. Now, let's jump into the Maestro. You'll see I got a whole bunch of tabs open here because these are all features. And if I find a bug somewhere, I'll go do a search for the tab. Maybe I want to go make a change to my achievements. Recently I had to fix this hideous graphic that it made without my catching it. All right, so you can see that everything is specific, and we track the context window, and you can do a compact if you want. We can toggle to unreads only. That allows me to, as I'm flying around and running queries on different things, I'll see them pop up as toaster notifications, or I'll just show the unread tabs and run through it that way. And I can show an example of this in a minute. You can see my long running history, and as I scroll, it's showing you that this graph is updating. Let me show you a fancy auto run from here. So go hit the auto run. Auto runs can be saved and loaded. If you make more than one document, we're going to call that a playbook, and you can export it. So let's go load a playbook that has no loop. I'll explain what that means in a second. Here what we've got is a couple documents. First runs, it's normal, it's got 6 tasks. When it's done, it's done. Size check runs, it's got this reset flag on it. What that means is that when this document is done processing, before we move on to the next one, we reset all the tasks in here. And if you do that to a document, then you're allowed to actually duplicate it, because maybe we want to run some special check or whatever after every single one of our documents. The reset documents can be duplicated. And this will run through the whole thing, make sure every box is checked, and then it'll stop the process. Let's go look at one with a loop. Right? That's where we turn on this loop business. And you can say loop infinity or loop a max number of times. When we loop, the strategy that I use here is I have a exit condition in the reset document here, where it says if this case is not reached, then do not reset all the check marks in first, second, and third. Otherwise, go and reset all the check marks in first, second, third. And so that's going to allow this thing to keep running, because at the end of the loop, if there are non-reset documents with unfinished tasks, then we loop again. Now, of course, we can set a max here. And again, you set some global prompt. The same default is fine, but you might want to have something custom. And when you save a playbook, all of this, the configuration, everything is saved with it. And then you can export it and import them. So look, we can download them, we can import them. So you can come up with something clever and share it with your friends. And I'll show you actually, let me show you here what I'm working on. So here are some generic playbooks I'm working on. Producing documentation for API, doing performance analysis, refactoring for simplicity, security analysis, creating test cases, and checking for usage documentation gaps. All right, so these are all the major playbooks that are very dev-oriented, but that I will just bundle as downloads with Maestro. And so the idea here is, and this is the phase that I'm switching to now, is I'm going to be going into a refactoring and creating test cases. I want to have high test case coverage. I don't want any files to be larger than, I don't know, maybe like 20K tokens. And actually, if you look at the project now, it's gotten a little bit unwieldy. All right, we're 60,000 lines of code. That's 6,900 in the main app, which is token count wise, 3 times the size that I really want it to be. 60,000 tokens. It's just not going to be able to. I would like something that can be pulled into the context window of a 250,000 and not take up more than, maximum 20% of it. So that's going to be a major aspect of the refactor there. But once these are ready, I will share them out. I want to run through them, actually test them on Maestro. This is like the best project for dog fooding. I'm like dog fooding it and building it, and it's like a train that's driving on train tracks that are being built right in front of it. So that's the auto run capability, handedly the most powerful feature of this tool. And some of the projects I'm looking at doing is automating trades on Polymarket, doing market research. I use Claude right now to do market research, for example, in the Gen AI space. In my advisory role with Odin, I need to know what's going on there. And so it's checking things like, who's in the space, who's investing in them, who are the founders, what are the exits, what are the products, all of this. And so now I'm going to be managing that through Maestro. Let's do some rapid usage so you can get an idea of what multitasking looks like. Let's start from a fresh one. Run the reset.sh script. What does this project do? And you can see it's queuing it up. Who are you? These aren't particularly write commands, but because they are not in read-only, they're going to queue up. And you can see the queue and jump to it and cancel messages and all that. But if I open up another one and go read-only mode, this one will just execute immediately. And you can see the other items that are queued behind it. And look, now we got unread notifications. You have a thinking indicator here. I can filter down to just the unread ones. And this is how I'm moving through things and not losing track of what I was working on. Because before, this was a nightmare. And another thing is, notice this is my iTerm. These tabs used to be all the way down here. I have shut down so many consoles because they've all moved to Maestro. I no longer have these two panel windows, one for Claude, or maybe sometimes I'll have multiple Claude sessions, each one with a different thread, and I'm using panel naming. It was a nightmare for me. But now all of this is so easily organized, and I'm able to just fly around the interface and just build with zero friction. Another cool feature is this live feature. So I don't want to just hack from my laptop. I might want to be watching what's going on here, give instructions from my telephone. So it's got a web interface, and it's even got a tunnel. So when you click live, let's take this thing offline, and it's default offline. Let's go back to Electron, for example. I just turned it on. We're live. Let's open this in the browser, and you'll get a feel for what this looks like. All right. So it's a simplified version. Some hotkeys still work. You can still issue terminal commands. You can still talk to it. All that is functional. You can search all the tabs. You can change your group and your open agent. You can check your history. So what auto is doing, how it's going. You can keep track of it. If an auto run is running, you'll see it there. But sometimes you want to leave the house as well, and so we use free Cloudflare tunnel. No need for an API key or anything. You just click this, and it's going to tunnel. And the secret is built into the URL, so that's how we're doing the security there. And now you got remote control access to, and it really is remote control. Like if you change the theme, it changes on the phone immediately. If on the phone you're switching tabs, it changes on the desktop. So it's single operator, a true remote control. I want to see it. I don't want it to be decoupled. I designed it like that, on purpose. Let's turn this off. Let's switch to the other one. Let's look at a real web interface. Let's call it. You can see even when it's like a more advanced one. And you'll notice, of course, the theme applies, it conveys. But you can see all my different groups and projects, and I can expand them out and jump to something and search them and look at the history and all that goodness. All my open tabs, continue the conversation. Really quite wonderful. Slash commands are all available here. You can, if you have a device that supports it, you can use audio. Of course, I'm using WhisperFlow, but this is for everyone else out there. So that's the general gist of it. I'm sorry. We've got we've got diff viewers. Let me see if there's anything that's available. Yeah, like here you go. Nope, I don't have a diff there. Well, there's a diff viewer. There's a git log viewer, so I can look at the actual the system log. So if you want to like look for errors or whatnot, you can see a cute little color coded background here, so you can get an idea. Kind of like the IDA Pro band. Kind of replicated that here. You can look at the Git history. So if you want to go to Command K menu. How can I forget? The Command K menu is fuzzy search. You can jump to any open agent. You can go to a whole bunch of different settings. Here you can go look at like the Git log. So right from within here, we can go through it. If there was a diff, you would see the change shown here. You can click on it to preview it. Really quite nice. Let me show you actually. Just most recently, I just added this demo mode because I wanted to show what the interface looked like empty. I had to create a demo mode for me. But I have no open tasks at the moment that come to off the top of my mind to show the Git diff view. But that's the general gist of it. So kick the tires, give me some feedback. There's some built-in documentation you can read, like about the history panel, about auto run. It's probably the most complicated thing you can do. Don't forget you got keyboard shortcut help as well. You can get that from command menu as well. Shortcuts, view shortcuts. I try and show the shortcut hint everywhere it's available, so we can get folks really getting into the keyboard flow. That just about wraps it.